I make a motion that we hold the millage rate at the current level at 7.85 mils.
That's 7.845.
7.845 mils for the current level.
Which means there would be no increase. Do I hear a second?
That's a
Been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote? Aye. Okay. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-1 that the millage rate will remain the same.
Now, obviously, I am the one that brought up the proposal for the millage rate increase, and I think in a lot of the comments and the things that I heard, obviously the easiest thing for me to do would be to take it back or not do it. And I'm probably too hard-headed to maybe make an easy choice like that, but I think that the responsible thing still, given what we're given by the legislature, as well as our charge as we're elected to look after the interests of the community as a whole, not only the people here today or the people that have come to other meetings, not only the Chamber of Commerce, but looking at the kids as the lead, or as the greatest common denominator we have, what's best for kids, and then looking at what's best for the community. I think we've all looked at that, and I respect everyone's opinion on it, and I'm not sure I know everyone's stance on it. But one of the things that we've been asked to do is, why don't we run school like a business? But they're actually asking us to not run it like a business. Because if you fail to plan, you're just planning to fail. And many of the things that we saw in our economy and our economic collapse were for the signs that were seen and that we just failed to plan for them. And everyone was doing it. Everyone was holding steady on the rate. Everyone was giving loans for houses in an environment that 5 years before people were predicting was a bubble that was going to burst. And we kind of moved in a direction, and in the end, those things do come to roost at some point. The budgets that we plan, and what we would do as a business is try to run a balanced budget. If we're trying to run like a government entity, then we'll try to run on deficits, or we'll accept deficits. We're faced with a deficit of which the federal government stimulus money is proposed to kind of fill that gap. Well, I don't really trust the government's promises at this point from the federal level, but I also don't expect that the state is going to hold steady on no further reductions during this fiscal year, because it hasn't been that way for the last several years. So we're probably facing a greater deficit than what we've even planned for. Faced with that, not planning to generate some revenue at the same time that we're going to be, it's not mutually exclusive. We still have to have cuts, and we're still going to continue to look at efficiencies. We still have a lot of school reforming to do. We heard from the leadership team in our work session. Obviously, that's one of the things that they're doing in the classroom. We are thinking outside of the box. We are doing more with less. But if you take just a simple butcher with a piece of meat that's 16 ounces and you said, I want it to be 40% less than that, you just wax off 40% of it. It's not a very intelligent cut. You still have a lower quality piece of meat with all the fat, where he could have actually cut the fat, taken a little bit more time, thinking it through a little bit, and get down that same 40% and have a nice lean piece of meat with that. We've tried to do things, what we said, with a surgical approach, with we're not just taking a cleaver, but we're using a scalpel. And I think that's the right course. We do need to cut spending. It's not a referendum on the government, unfortunately. I'm the last person that I thought would be proposing a tax increase. I'm what I would call a staunch conservative against taxation. But this is what we were dealt, in the position that we were put into, is looking at after the entity that we have. And we talk about that, not during our watch is it going to suffer, or are any kids going to suffer from it.
I will vote against the millage increase this year for 4 reasons. Number one, our very high unemployment and foreclosure rates.
Yes.
Number two, we do have have enough in our reserve fund to get through this year? Number 3, the state of Georgia now has had 3 straight months of increasing tax revenues, and I'm a glass half full kind of a guy. I'm optimistic and hopeful that that stream of revenue will continue increasing. I don't know that it will, but that's 3 months in a row. This last month, I think, was up 12% over the year before. And number 4, but frankly, the most important one, is assurances given to me and to these board members from others, including the mayor, that others are willing to talk and to help. And I appreciate that. And I am willing, and I have been willing, and I have attended every meeting I've ever been asked to attend, and I will continue to do that. I've never turned somebody down that wanted to sit down and talk about issues facing this community. For those 4 reasons, I'm going to vote against the millage rate increase this year. Now, let me mention this as well, though. In the past 2.5 years, nearly $10 million has been cut from the Dalton Public School budget. So don't think we hadn't been doing anything. Our per pupil spending has declined by nearly $1,000 in that time period. That doesn't mean we're finished. It's an ongoing process. But this discussion also is about what level of quality the community is willing to accept in our local system of public education. Not only for the future of the individual students we serve, but also for the future health of this community. At Dalton Public Schools, we have never assumed that the state's minimum requirements are good enough. And just because some other district does it cheaper doesn't mean we ought to. Because when you look at the results, what's going on with the kids that are finished in Dalton Public Schools, I'll compare them to anybody. Particularly considering the diversity issues that we face. Now, all partnerships that we have generated and hope to generate in the future, I appreciate, and they will be pursued, and I appreciate the mayor's willingness to continue these conversations with us. Next year is going to be a tougher year than this year has been. And frankly, if something extraordinary doesn't happen, then we're in some deep trouble. And when I'm talking about something extraordinary, it means partnerships and working together within this community, but I'm also talking about what's got to come out of Atlanta in that legislature. They've been ducking this and ducking this and ducking this for their own political will. And they've got to step up to the plate. And if that means some kind of a sales tax form to finance schools, then so be it. But I'm on record as saying, I see what they've been doing for the last 7 or 8 years, and they're not fooling me. But I want you also to know that I am not going to allow this school district to deliver less than excellent services to our kids. That's not going to happen. The citizens of Dalton own Dalton Public Schools. The citizens of Dalton own Dalton General Government. And the citizens of Dalton own Dalton Utilities. The citizens of Dalton pay us, the school district, tax dollars for our expenses. One of those expenses is utilities. We are paying Dalton Utilities tax dollars for Dalton Utilities to make a profit and for that transfer tax that then ends up with the city government. Now, in my opinion, that's double taxation.